Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are thrilled to have you joining us to learn all about Ready Set Math. Throughout our time together, we are going to be using the Q&A feature in Zoom. So for any questions that you have related to Ready Set Math, this is going to just help us to be able to manage those questions and be able to efficiently address as many as possible during the session. There is going to be a session, a part of the session at the end where we'll truly just be focusing on questions and answers, but please feel free to drop your questions into that Q&A spot. We have somebody that it's going to be managing the questions that are being dropped in there. And if there's some that are able to be answered right away, we'll get those answers in there right away. But we will answer as many questions as we can towards the end of our time together. If you do encounter any technical difficulties, please feel free to privately message our producer that is on tonight is Adrienne Brooks. And then we also have Crystal Bissing joining us as well as some background support. And Crystal is also going to be managing our question and answer box as well. So thank you to the both of them for joining us. Just truly from the bottom of our hearts, we are just so grateful that you are choosing to spend your evening with us for this next hour to either learn more about Ready Set Math for those of you that have been using it, and for those of you that have just heard a little bit about it, are looking to learn something about it. So thank you. All right. All right, so Ready Set Math is designed to serve as a supplemental resource that can support and enhance math instruction in a variety of classroom learning environments. It is grounded in our math recovery research and pedagogy from the progressions within the modules themselves and also the sub-goals within each module. And this content is used to develop each of the lessons and activities from our math recovery research. The lessons and activities are high quality, engaging, and can be easily adapted to support math instruction across multiple grade levels, spanning from primary, intermediate to middle school age classrooms, and also serve a wide range of instructional needs from everything from core instruction to intervention support. There's also a number of support features that are built into the resource that we'll take a look at tonight that do guide you in your decision making to make sure you're making the best selection of content for the students that you're working with. Like I said, the Ready Set Math resource is developed from our learning framework and number and our math recovery research. This content spans 10 total modules ranging from early numeracy to fraction concepts. Each of these modules do have a course that we offer with math recovery that does dig deeper into the content and those learning progressions within each of those domains, as well as our full comprehensive diagnostic assessments. But Ready Set Math is developed in such a way that it is to be able to be useful for all educators, regardless of your experience with math recovery or any of our professional development courses. So just keep in mind that the resource, if there is, as you're using the resource, if there's ever a poll where you would like to learn more about those learning progressions, about the content, or even a more comprehensive way to assess your students, do know that you can definitely engage in that learning through any one of our advanced math recovery courses or our math specialist courses, or even purchasing any one of the books through our math recovery store and be able to learn more. All of the lessons and activities within each of the models are built from our learning framework and number, our guiding principles, and our key elements of instruction. So if you have not participated in those courses, those features are built into the resource, and also you are supported throughout the resource with some other features that we're going to cover tonight as well. All right. Like I said, there are 10 modules that span from early number all the way through fraction concepts. This document here is a great look that gives you like an overview of all 10 of those modules and the support that the lessons and activities are going to be providing students with. So on this left side, you're going to notice specific questions or tasks. These are the questions or tasks of what students may need support with. And when you notice those questions and tasks and you identify those particular things as being support that your students are going to need instruction in, then the modules in the middle that align with those would be good modules to start with. So from a first look, this is a great document to help you determine which modules are appropriate for you to access those instructional resources to meet the student needs in which you're working with. So from those questions, you identify the modules that you would want to be focusing on. And then on the far right side, you can also determine if you're looking for support for core content or intervention support or extension support. We have each of the modules aligned to the grade level bands in which they support. So for instance, these 3 modules in these fuchsia colors for addition subtraction, from basic counting strategies all the way through 20, it would cover core content for pre-K to K, primary, intervention needs for primary grades and intermediate grades, and then even some extension for pre-K and kindergarten. And again, that's using that alignment when you look across from the module. Okay. All right. So now we're going to jump into the actual resource, and I'm going to take you through and just bring attention to some features there. All right. So from either our homepage, from our website, or when you're logged into your Math Recovery account and from your member center, you are able to get to our Ready Set Math homepage. So this here is what we call the landing page. Here you're going to find just a general overview of what Ready Set Math is, and then that which module document that I just showed you can be found right here when you expand that blue box here. And then you're able to also download that and print it as well for you to use as a reference in selecting a module appropriate for the students you're working with. Okay. All right, the 10 modules are all along the right-hand side here. They are color-coded because they are clustered by similar domain within our numeracy framework. So early numeracy words, symbols, and quantities are going to incorporate our number, words, and numeral domain, as well as our very early stages of structuring number and counting. So when I open that up, you'll be able to see the span of all the topics that are covered in this very early number. So you'll see subgoals A, C, and E all incorporate the number, words, and numerals. And subgoal B is going to cover the early level of early structuring. And then subgoal D is that very emergent stage in our addition and subtraction domain where we're just working on counting quantities and collections. The other clusters you're going to notice, this next 3 modules all focus on those learning progressions for addition and subtraction, starting first with those counting-based strategies and then moving through to strategies and basic facts to 10 and to 20. For those of you that are familiar with our learning progressions from our math recovery courses, these 3 modules are going to incorporate both the learning progressions from addition and subtraction and also structuring number. Specifically, addition, subtraction to 10 and 20 is where you're going to notice and recognize that instruction blends addition and subtraction and structuring together. The next clusters are place value clusters and addition subtraction to 10 or to 100. So these 2 modules are starting first with those early concepts of conceptual place value in base 10, so our units of ones, tens, and hundreds, and then progressing to formal arithmetic for addition and subtraction. So in the addition and subtraction to 100 mental strategies, you're going to see a full progression of developing mental strategies for multi-digit addition subtraction. The multiplication division cluster is starting first with a full module just focusing on those counting-based strategies. And then the next module is how do we move students beyond those counting-based strategies? So the strategies and basic facts is a full module full of lessons and activities broke down within, I'll open that up for you, 4 sub-goals, taking you through a learning progression of how to move students to a point of facility with their basic facts for multiplication division within 100. And then our final cluster are our fraction concepts. Our first fraction module focusing on part whole measurement and then moving into coordinating those fractional units. Okay, so that's a little overview of all 10 modules. And again, using your district data and your classroom data to identify which kind of key numeracy domains students need support with are also really appropriate data points to be able to make your decision, as well as that document that I had shared with you, which module will meet your students' needs. Okay. All right. We are going to jump into a specific module so I can go into detail all the features within a module. Every module is organized and structured the same way. So by jumping into one module, the layout of it and how to navigate a module will be really similar to every other, no matter what module you jump into. So when you open up a module, you're going to see this overview page. And on the overview page, you see the full progression of the sub-goals. And these sub-goals are the progression that you're going to be taking in order to achieve this overall learning goal. So the goal on the left side is basically the learning target that your students will be successful at by the end of the last of the lessons in sub-goal E. Okay. The learning goal description goes into detail about what we mean by that learning goal. The other thing to take note of is the prerequisite knowledge. This is needed knowledge for the student to have in place for them to truly find success in the lessons and activities in this module. So you'll want to take note of that prerequisite knowledge and make sure that based on your classroom data or any other math recovery data that you have, that they do have at least these points in place to find the best success as you're moving through the lessons. Okay. And like I said, the sub goals on the right-hand side here, take that overall learning goal and break it up into those incremental progressional steps to be able to achieve that end target. Okay, so in this case, our overall goal is that they are going to be able to develop a knowledge and network of relationships for basic facts to 10. So the end goal of this is that they're going to be fluent and facile in their facts to 10 for addition and subtraction. How do we get there? Well, it's through these sub-goals. Each sub-goal, taking note of the title, and then you can expand these boxes here to get the full description of the learning that will take place within that sub-goal. Okay. The other thing that each sub-goal provides you is a student knowledge check. These knowledge checks are multifaceted and are able to give you kind of pre-assessment information. Also, while you're teaching formative assessment checks, and as you reach the end of the instructional resources with the lessons and activities, to use as kind of an exit ticket to see if they've achieved this overall learning goal within this sub-goal. For those of you that have taken our courses, you have a full diagnostic assessment that you've been trained on through your courses. These knowledge checks may look familiar to you from those assessments because they're isolated tasks from those assessments, and it's specifically assessing this particular stage in those learning progressions. These knowledge checks are typically administered in an interview-based way, or can be administered in small groups of students. And then we always give the educator some insight as to what it is you're looking for and listening for in order to determine if the student is successful or not. So after administering those knowledge checks, then you'll be able to determine where in this module to begin. So just because you're jumping into a module, it doesn't always mean that you have to start at subgoal A. You really do want to make sure you're using student data to help you make your decision making around where to begin. So we know, based on probably maybe some universal screeners or your classroom data, that your students are not facile in their basic FACS to 10. So that's what drove you to select this module. But then making the determination on where in this module to start, taking a look at the title of those subgoals, and then dropping down those student knowledge checks and administering those knowledge checks, or even just reading them through and looking at student work to determine if that is an appropriate place to begin, is where you'd want to collect that data to know where to start and what instructional resources to access. Okay, so if we decide, yep, my students have their combinations and partitions to 5, they're really good with their small doubles and 5+ combinations based on my classroom data, but I know that they're really struggling with those combinations and partitions of 10. So I would choose then to jump into those instructional resources. All right, so when you open up the instructional resources, this is the meat of the resource. Okay, here you're going to find all of your instructional activities or lessons and your independent instructional activities. At a first look, it's really important that you kind of get a good sense of this page because it's a good overview of everything that is provided to support you in your instruction in order to achieve this overall learning target for this subgoal. Okay, so starting first on the left side, our large group instructional activities are not at all intended to only be administered with large groups of students. They're large group instructional activities by design of keeping in mind the instructional practices that we typically employ with large groups of students. So typically our large group lessons are going to have less student engagement with the instructional setting, more modeling by the teacher. So right off the bat, there's a lot more distancing from the setting in those instructional lessons within the large group setting. Large group activities tend to be much more conversational based, turn and talk with other students in the large group, a lot more share out, students sharing their thinking or their strategies, and a lot more collaborative learning. And again, really working on visualizing the structure of any instructional settings that are going to be used. Additionally, if there are instructional settings that are used, typically you're going to find them to be less supportive in structure than you might find in the small group lessons. Okay, the small group lessons will tend to be more scaffolded from those large group lessons. So in the development of this resource, if we were to develop a large group lesson, we kind of sat back and thought, if students were not successful with that large group lesson, what is some level of scaffolded support that they may need? The instructional tool might be adjusted to be more supportive. So the small group lesson might incorporate a more supportive setting. Also, the student may need to actually physically engage with that setting. So the small group lesson may incorporate all students to be hands-on with those instructional tools. And the small group lesson is going to be much more teacher facilitated and teacher guided than those large group instructional activities. Okay. And then lastly, on the far left or on the far right side are the independent instructional activities. These activities are truly to be independent of instruction. So not always to say that the teacher can't be involved. I do like to encourage teachers that are using Ready Set Math to incorporate the independent instructional activities into components of their small group or large group lessons, because students love activities and game feel lessons. So incorporating those independent instructional activities into your lesson experiences can also help increase student engagement as well. But they are designed with a rehearsal mode of instruction. So these independent instructional activities are going to be more direction based and not so much teacher lesson driven. Okay, and we're going to jump into the actual lesson pages so you can see each of those, how they differ. But before we jump into a specific lesson, I do want to just make a couple other notes on this page in general. The lessons do tend to progress in sophistication from top to bottom. So when you are choosing to start with a particular subgoal within a module, the question always then comes, where do I start from this lesson page? Well, if you know that you have students that are truly starting at the early stages of this particular subgoal, taking note of that learning target again, then you may want to consider starting first with one of the top large group or small group instructional activities. The small group instructional activity is going to be much more supported and scaffolded in support than this first large group instructional activity. So probably wanting to start somewhere towards the top. The independent activities are, again, truly independent, so they're rehearsal mode versus the inquiry mode of instruction for the large group and small group lessons. So you probably aren't going to want to start with an independent activity, as those are going to be great activities for you to follow up a lesson with, okay? Also, they kind of zigzag as you make your way down the page. Something to really take note of in your planning are the purpose statements. So taking note of the verbs used, the materials used, and basically the expectation of what this lesson is out to achieve. So exploring partitions of 10 using 10 frames, then we move to developing mental models with combinations of 10 using those 10 frames, and then just exploring combinations of 10 with general materials, and then determining those missing add-ins. So you can kind of see that it progresses in sophistication as we move down. Okay, and then as we move across, these lessons tend to support each other as well. Okay, all right, I'm going to jump into a lesson now. So when I jump into this large group lesson, the large group and small group lessons, the structure of them are both very similar, meaning that they start first with the purpose and description statement, a materials box. And as you review the materials, we do have any printable materials or even physical materials. You can hover over them and a pop-up box will show up to be able to support you in what it is you're looking for. And if it is a game board or cards or something that would need to be printed, you are able to print those by clicking this download cloud, and it will open up for you in a separate PDF window. Okay, and then you're able to download and print those and cut them, and then they're ready for you to use for that lesson. Now we know that time is a very valuable resource for teachers. So all of these materials that are downloaded and printed are available in a separate companion kit for a separate purchase known as a activity board box set. So when you're kind of exploring the store, and we'll get into some of the ordering stuff a little bit later, there are two types of companion kits. And again, those are companion kits. They're not at all required for you to have in order to effectively be able to facilitate these lessons and activities. As you can see, you can download and print everything you need from the digital resource. But if you didn't want to have to download, print, and prep everything, you are able to buy that kit that has everything that you would need to download and print right in that kit for you. Okay. The next section you're going to see is this section that we call What to Say and Do. This is essentially a facilitation guide for the teacher that's just walking you through what the lesson should look like and sound like. Starting first at times, introducing a setting. We're giving you as the educator support in the type of tasks that you would be presenting to the students and things to take into consideration, guiding questions to ask as you're facilitating your way through the lesson, and then some suggestions on how you can progress and change up the presentation of those tasks, just really to give life and depth to the lesson. These lessons aren't ever really intended to be a one and done kind of lesson. You are able to reuse and reteach these lessons just by changing up the tasks that you're using, or even at times the setting by either using the setting or starting to distance from that setting or incorporating a different setting. And if there's ever suggestions, we would be making those suggestions to you in some variations of the lesson or in our light bulb moments. So in our light bulb moments, these are intended to feel like you have a math recovery coach sitting right alongside you. So at times, we're going to just give some tips to certain steps in that facilitation guide. So like in this case, by using a 10 frame pattern card and saying, let's take a look at this and tell me what you see, that this particular step is what's providing an opportunity for you to explore the settings. So it was important for us to bring attention to the fact that you want your students to be able to get familiar with the setting in which you're using. Okay. Other times we'll bring attention to intentional questions we want you to be asking, or why a certain step in that teaching progression is really important. Okay. Again, those light bulb moments are intended to be those coaching tips and some things that we as math recovery coaches would want to bring to your attention. Okay. The other feature you're going to see on the lesson page are these magnifying glass moments. The magnifying glass moments are these in the moment instructional look-fors. Also, possibly could be regarded as those fine tuning formative assessment moments. These are the points in the lesson that we, as your math recovery coaches, wanted to bring attention to the fact that there's something particular for you as the teacher to be watching for, listening for, or noticing. When you see a magnifying glass moment, it's definitely probably going to be a good opportunity to make some anecdotal notes about a behavior that a student's doing or a particular way a student's responding to that task. Okay. Another feature that you're going to see on the lesson page are some color-coded words. When you hover over these color-coded words, these are vocabulary words that we wanted to make sure that you fully understand what we mean by that particular term. Probably it's maybe a word that we in the math recovery community are frequently used to using, but may not be frequently used in the general numeracy or mathematics world. So we just wanted to always make sure that we gave definition to those vocabulary words. Okay. So again, as you progress through the lesson and you're noticing my students are really rocking working on these combinations of 10 using these fixed. And remember, the setting we're using are fixed 10 frame cards. Okay. So if they're really rocking it, then we would want to progress to that next large group lesson. So up here in our breadcrumb trail, I would jump back out to subgoal C and then progress to that next large group lesson. Okay. And then I'd be ready to move on. And in this case, then our setting has changed from those fixed 10 frames with those combinations and partition cards to now I'm just using loose counters. Okay. If my student was not finding success with that lesson, I'm going to jump back into that lesson. And I felt like they just needed a little more support. There's this related activity to the small group lesson that would be related to that large group lesson. This lesson is going to provide some scaffolded support to that similar learning target that I was focusing on in that large group lesson. Okay. Again, set up in the same structure and format with the materials here. Something different in this material list when I hover over, these are those physical materials. So for those of you that may have seen that other companion kit called our manipulative kit, the manipulative kit is going to include any physical material or manipulative or instructional setting that is used at any given point in this entire module. Okay, and again, those are companion kits available for a separate purchase. All right, so we move into the small group lesson because they needed a little bit more support from just using those pattern cards that we were using in the large group lesson. I progress and I make my way through, take note of all these magnifying glass moments. Again, remember those magnifying glass moments are those formative assessment moments, those opportunities to observe student behaviors and responses to best fine tune your teaching and make your decisions on where to go next. Okay. In this particular lesson, like I said, at times we have some variations to offer you. in just a slight change that you can make to the lesson to give it a little bit of variety. Also, if they were finding success with this small group lesson, you kind of have two pathways you can choose here. You can go back to that large group lesson and use that setting and the progression, that teaching progression that was outlined there to be, and then jump into that large group lesson and see if they now are finding success after going through this small group lesson. Or we can jump into the independent activity and incorporate that independent activity into a small group lesson and use that as a as a teachable moment, or you can use that independent activity for them to go off on their own, independent of the teacher, and be able to just rehearse the knowledge and understanding that they were doing in the lesson with you. So I'll jump into that independent activity that's related to that lesson. And you're going to notice the structure of this lesson page looks different than the small group and large group lessons. We don't have a what to say and do section because it's just directions. Because remember, it is truly developed with the intention to be rehearsal mode and more game-like feel for the students to engage in independent practice of that learning target. Okay. Any materials that you need in order to have the students engage in this activity are going to be able to be downloaded and printed for them, as well as student directions. You're going to notice at times that the student directions may slightly differ from the directions on the teacher page, and that's because the student directions are written in student-friendly language. So hopefully easily comprehended by the student as they're rereading those directions. But the directions here are for you as the teacher to be able to introduce this activity to the students before sending them off independently to play the activity. You'll notice that at times there's going to be magnifying glass moments or light bulb moments. This is just bringing your attention as the teacher to possible teacher moments and things that you could be intentional about while you're observing students while engaging in the activity. Okay. If you wanted to incorporate this activity into a lesson and turn it into a kind of teaching moment in a large group or small group lesson, I often recommend going into one of the related large group or small group lessons to be able to incorporate some questions, some guiding questions that you might want to incorporate into the activity. All right. So as I progress through the resource from the very beginning page and then into a module, into a subgoal, and into an activity, you're going to notice that across the top here, this breadcrumb trail started to form. So at any point in time when you want to get back to where either you began at the very beginning, where all 10 modules are, you would click on this 1, 2, 3 rainbow. If you wanted to just get back to the subgoal page, you'll click on that subgoal page here. And if you wanted to just get back to the module page, then you would click on that module page and that breadcrumb trail. So that's how you can easily navigate back either one step back or all the way back to the beginning. The other thing I want to bring attention to, just for organization purposes, is this activity code that you're going to notice on each of the activities. So when you open up an activity page, you're going to notice this activity code up in the right-hand corner of the title of the activity. The first number here is the module number. The next letter is which subgoal this activity can be found in. And then the next letter is if it is a large group, small group, or independent activity. And then the last number is which activity in the line, in the order that you could find that activity. So when I move back into that subgoal C, you're going to see that 3CS2 is in module 3, subgoal C. It's a small group activity, and it's the second activity in line for those small group lessons. Why that's important, as you download and print those resources, or if you have the activity board box sets, you're going to notice that in the footer of those resources that you're printing or you have in those kits are going to at times have a code on the bottom of those resources. That code is going to help you identify which activity that that relates to. Okay. All right, the last thing I want to bring attention to on this instructional resource page is the home communication and engagement tool. This is a supportive tool truly intended to support your communication home to parents and also possibly for some of you that are providing intervention and need to communicate to classroom teachers. We provide some really good, easy to understand and parent-friendly language to be able to use in your emails or newsletters or any communication that you're sending home with parents. So these bullet points are just helping you communicate that overall learning goal within the sub-goal. So each sub-goal has a home communication support. So this first page again is helping you communicate what that learning goal is all about. This next page is giving you, the educator, some suggestions on how you can make the activities within this module accessible beyond their time with you. So offering suggestions of how to create or make some of the materials that you are using in the classroom to be able to send them home for students to engage with. But again, these are ideas for you to make those activities within the module accessible to students at home. On the far right side, these are suggestions that you can use to make in your communication home as just some extension activities that they can be doing with their student. Oftentimes, it's going to be discussion prompts and things that they can be doing in their everyday world around them. So as you can see here, it's just giving the parents some questions that they can engage in the learning with their child at home. Okay. All right. So we're going to jump back to that main page here. There are a number of ways that you can go about purchasing, and for some of you that have made that purchase either individually or maybe you've made that purchase at the district level, or maybe some of you have been the lucky winners of some math recovery Ready Set Math modules if you've attended some of our conferences. Either way, the purchasing of that can happen here. If you're going to purchase for yourself, we're going to talk about some details with that. You would click this and it will take you to the Math Recovery store. If you're wanting to make a purchase for your district and you do not have a district account or you don't have access to your district account, it's going to prompt you to submit an inquiry to get set up with one of us as a client support and sales specialist, and we'll be happy to get that all set up for you. Okay, so we're going to cover now those 3 ways to purchase and manage the digital seats for Ready Set Math. And I emphasize the digital seats because the digital seats is the resource of Ready Set Math. That's where you're going to be able to access all of the facilitation guides for the lessons and activities. Those companion resources being the manipulative kits and the companion and the activity board box sets are companion resources to help support the facilitation and implementation of those lessons and activities. Okay, so the first way you can purchase and manage your seats within modules is through an individual account. If you make a purchase through your individual account, you personally own those resources and you are able to maintain access to those lessons and activities for a lifetime through your personal math recovery account, no matter where you teach or if you're retired. If you purchase them personally through your individual account, you own them forever. You can only own one seat in each module, and those are purchased through the Math Recovery store from your member center. Another way that you can purchase and manage digital seats is through a building account. So if you're just an elementary building in your district or a department within your district, you are able to own and manage seats within a building or department account. Access to these remains linked to the building or department for a lifetime. So once you purchase those seats, you don't ever have to renew anything. They are owned forever. Buildings or departments are able to purchase multiple seats per module, and you're able to distribute those seats to the educators within your building educator list. The purchase is made through a building account, and that account can either be set up through a district admin that manages your district math recovery account, or you can reach out to one of us, either Crystal or Melissa, as your math recovery sales specialist, and we'd be more than happy to help you get that set up. The last way and third way that you can purchase and manage digital seats is through a district account. When you purchase seats through a district account, the seats are owned by the district. And again, the district owns the access to those seats for a lifetime, again, never needing to renew a subscription. A district is able to purchase multiple seats per module, and they are distributed to either individual educators within the district, or the district also has the ability to distribute multiple seats to modules for buildings or departments. So if a district account is set up with multiple building accounts and they purchase a number of seats in a particular module, they can distribute a number of seats to a particular building. And then from there, the building manager within that account is able to manage those seats to the educators. Again, the purchase for a district account is done through a district account or a district dashboard by the identified person with that permission. And again, those accounts do need to be set up by a math recovery sales specialist. So if you do not have a math recovery account for your district, or you're not sure who the district admin is on your account, please reach out to one of either Crystal or I. And at the end of our presentation here, we will provide our email addresses for you as well. Okay. All right. At this time, I know Crystal has been working on addressing some questions and answers that have been coming in. I do want to open it up now to be able to verbally answer some of those questions that have come in, and allow for additional time for those of you that do have questions to drop those in. But before we do that, I do want to make sure that each of you know how grateful we are that you joined us tonight. We are providing for a limited time until December 31st, a 10% discount on all Ready Set Math digital modules. So with that being said, we just covered all the 3 different ways you can purchase those digital resources, either through your individual account, your building account, or your district account. When you process that order and you check out, you're able to use the promo code RSMWeb10, and that will apply a 10% discount on your digital resources. And again, if you have any questions or problems with that, please reach out to Crystal Bissing or Melissa Wilkie, and we'll be more than happy to help you with that. Okay. All right. So we'll open it up for questions and answers at this time. All right. I'm going to jump through here. All right, just making sure that everyone was able to find that which module will meet my students' needs. This document here can be found on that on the Ready Set Math homepage. When you're on this homepage and you open up that box here, and you're able to download and print that if you click that highlighted text, and then that will open up for you to download and print that.
Melissa, we also got a really great question in chat. What's the maximum number of seats that you can have on a district or building account?
Great question. There is no limit to the number of seats you can have in a building or a district account. And the best way that many districts have been starting to make their purchase, they'll identify the number of educators that are supporting instruction in those particular domains, and they'll purchase that number of seats in that domain so that each educator has a seat and has access to those resources. And then what they're finding as they need to add to their collection to be able to have additional educators access those resources, you can always add more seats to those modules. But yeah, there is no limit to how many seats you can have in a module. And as well, also, I know for a limited time now, you have a promo code for attending this webinar for a 10% discount on your module seats. We do have bulk quantity discounts available. So if your order is more than 60 seats, and this is anytime, this isn't any for any certain period of time, but if you order more than 60 seats at a time, you do get a 10% discount. If you're ordering more than 450 seats at a time, then a 20% discount applies. Yes, the seats are by domain or module. So you do not, so by buying a seat, it does not give you access to all 10 modules. So when you're putting together your order, you are going to identify how many seats in module 1 you would like, how many seats in module 2, and how many seats in module 3, and so on. We have some like elementary buildings that will just purchase seats in modules 1 through 6 because those are the domains that they typically are always supporting students with in intervention services. Or our middle school middle schools that are purchasing will typically purchase seats in modules 6 through 10. So yes, those seats are domain or are module specific. Very good question. The 10% discount is only applicable to the digital resources and not to the companion kits. Over time, there will be, so always be watching for our pop-up sales on our website, but there will always be sales throughout a year. So always just watch for those sales to go on. Yes, this webinar is being recorded, and it is going to be sent to anybody that was registered for the webinar. So if you attended tonight, you will get a follow-up email with some additional information as well as the recording of this webinar. And for those of that were not able to attend, they also are going to be getting a follow-up email with the recording as well.
Melissa, how long will the promo code be good for?
The promo code is good through December 31st. How much is an individual license? Very good. So each seat, the original price is $125 per seat. And just remember that once you buy that seat, you own it forever. There is no renewal cost. This is not a subscription. And if you're purchasing it as a building or a district, you're purchasing seats in that module, and you as the building manager or the district manager you have the ability to distribute the use of those seats to educators as you see fit. So for example, if you're a district that has student data meetings every 6 to 10 weeks, and you sit down and you identify students that need particular support in a particular domain, and you've identified the teachers supporting those particular domains, you can make sure that the teachers needing those resources have access to those resources. If they're done with those resources, you can take those educators out of that seat and put a different educator in. So they're very flexible for you to be able to move educators in and out of those seats during periods of instruction. When you own a digital seat within that module, you have access to all the resources within that one module. So anything that you would need to download and print, you have full access to everything in all the sub-goals within that module. For those of you that need verification for PD purposes, you will be getting a follow-up email thanking you for attending the webinar if you were here, and also with the recording. Yes, there are 2 companion kits. One of those companion kits is a manipulative kit, and one is an activity board box set. I'm going to jump back because I'm going to show you in our store. I'm going to jump into the store so you can see our Ready Set Math resources. All right, so you can see here, the digital resource is access to all those lessons and activities that we just walked through. The manipulative kit are going to include all the instructional settings and tools, kind of those hands-on materials. That's the manipulative kit. The activity board box set is going to be anything from the digital resource that you are able to download and print, like game boards and spinners and different task cards. Those are all prepped and ready for you. The quantity that is included in these kits keeps in mind that if it's a resource used by students, there's 5 of them, typically, because if it's an activity board, there's usually 2 to 3 students that are able to use that. So that would encompass a class size. If it's if it's a setting that's used just by the teacher in that lesson, you'll have a quantity of 1 of them included. Great question. So when you buy that seat, and I'm going to actually show you when you purchase as a district from your district dashboard. When you purchase as a district, you'll have a dashboard that looks like this. So sometimes this view kind of helps people understand how the seats work. When you purchase your seats, the seats are going to be tracked in these boxes up here, always letting you know how many you have purchased, and of those purchased seats, how many you have left to distribute. Now, if at any given time I wanted to turn this seat off for that educator, I turn that seat off and it goes back into this collection of seats for module 1 that I can distribute, and then I can distribute that to a different educator. Okay, and I'm going to give that back to the educator. You'll notice here that this yellow box with a person in it. That's because this person owns these 2 seats personally. The district cannot take those seats away from that individual. They forever own them. No matter where they go, they're always going to have them. And so a district will be able to see if you have an educator that moved in and years ago they purchased Ready Set Math seats for themselves, they still will own them, and a district will be able to see that they have them and they don't need to give them their seats. There are at times individuals that retire and they're no longer using their seats. They can gift them back to their district, and we can easily convert those individual seats to the district seats. So those are always able, but that is done at the discretion of the individual that purchased them. But you're always able to turn those seats on and off as you need. I also mentioned that districts have the ability to give those seats to buildings. So when there's buildings in a district account, you're able to assign those seats to buildings by just saying the number of seats you want to be able to give to a building. And then that building would have a similar dashboard that looks like this and be able to distribute the seats to the educators in their building accounts. Very good question. The course that would allow you to take advantage of that, of learning how to administer and analyze the full diagnostic assessment, would be our Advantage Math Recovery courses. We have Advantage Math Recovery Course 1, Advantage Math Recovery Course 2, and our Advantage Math Recovery Fractions course. Additionally, we have specialist level courses. Our specialist level courses are a much longer at length course and a much deeper dive in the study of the content, the assessment practices, and instructional practices. And in a follow-up email, we can also provide course instruction for you as well. Very good question. Ordering a class set of 20 bead racks. Bead racks are an instructional manipulative or setting that's not specific to math recovery. You can actually find them on Amazon, EAI, really any educational resource. In our manipulative kits, they're included. We do have student sets that the students actually create with pipe cleaners and pony beads on heavy cardstock, but those are easily found on any education website to be able to order those for a class set. So, very good question. If I have an individual seat, can I move that into the district seat? Yes, you would just need to email one of us and we would be able to convert that personally owned seat to your district. All right. I think based on looking at the questions, we've covered all the questions. We'll stay on as if, in case anybody has additional questions that do pop up. I do want to just thank you so much for joining us tonight. It truly is our pleasure to spend this time with you. And again, as a thank you, we are providing you that 10% discount on all the digital resources. A recording of this webinar is going to be emailed to you, and it's also going to be reposted on our Facebook page. Again, if you have any questions that were not addressed during this time, please feel free to reach out to either Crystal Bissing or Melissa Wilkie. Our emails are right here for you. We also would love to stay connected with you. Please follow us on Facebook, and then here, scan our QR code or copy and paste our website address to explore more if you have more questions about our professional development or Ready Set Math. And there's also inquiry links there for you to submit any inquiries. If there's anything more that you would want to learn about or to set up a one-on-one meeting with one of us, we'd be more than happy to do that with you.
Melissa, as I'm
Oh,
trying to type it out, there is
I,
one good question.
I see some questions popping in. So, yep,
Yes.
I'm going to stay on here. All right. There is a situation where prevention is. Oh, very good question. The seats are not intended to be shared at the same time. When I say a district can take a seat away from an educator if they're no longer using the resources within that module, then they can take that seat away from that educator and distribute it to a different educator. We do have a list of those that attended. Um, so for that individual, if you if you want to email us your actual email address, then we'll make sure that you get the follow-up information if you weren't the one that registered. All right, perfect. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'll hang on for the last few minutes in case there's somebody else hanging on to answer any last minute questions that come through. You're so welcome. Thank you for joining. Thank you for hopping on.